guys, Jonah here, back with a beer review, one of the 12 beers of Christmas, and this is the penultimate version. Although this is part of a kind of two beer review because there's two different versions, and this is the OG version, the original, or is it? Let's see. You're probably scratching your head and thinking, what's he talking about? Well, the beer I'm doing today is this one, Hazy Jane by BrewDog, and this version, if we turn it that way round, is currently 5% ABV. And you might be scratching your head if you haven't had this beer for a while, and you might be thinking, wait a minute, that used to be a lot more than 5%, didn't it? And yes, you would be right. I think I first had this beer in 2017, maybe, something around that kind of aspect. Back then, it was a lot stronger than it is now. Now, what I heard through the grapevine was that they're calling it their deeper version of this, Double Jane, 7.2%, and then they have got a triple version, which is 9.5, somewhere up there. Now, what this person was saying was the double version used to be their normal Hazy Jane IPA. And if you look at the American version, the 7.2 version, which we're calling a double IPA, the Americans are just calling a normal IPA. See what I mean? Things get really confusing. And I've been talking to various people. Where does an IPA become a double, a deeper, or a teeper even? And in the UK, it's totally different to if you're in Australia. Sorry, America. It might be different in Australia as well. Yeah, our version of IPA is way, way lower. And Americans come over here and they're probably thinking, what's this? I could drink one of these and run a mile. And you probably would be right. The other difference is I looked up the hops in this bad boy, and they're almost similar to things we've had during the week or the last couple of weeks. It's Cascade, Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe, which is very, very similar. We've got oats in there, we've got wheat, we've got pale ale malt, all the good things that you might think make a proper IPA. But if you look at their deeper version, which apparently used to be where this one was, the hops are totally different. They've got some real modern hops in there. They've got Eldorado in there, for example. So they've changed the recipe as well as you go up. So essentially, it's a totally different beer to what this is. Anyway, that is a very, very long introduction to this video, and hopefully I haven't shaken up this can too much. We shall see in a second. Ooh, bit of fizzing going on there. Let's get this bad boy into a glass. And here we go. We have the Christmas glass with Santa. Have to put this away for another year soon. Oh, and as I thought, gentle, gentle pour. We have got quite a bit of foam on there. I'm going to leave it there because yesterday it went a bit higher than I had planned. There we go. Over a finger's head in the small glass. Quite a good amount of carbonation, but you will not be able to see this because this is a hazy beer. But like the name suggests, it's supposed to be hazy. This, believe it or not, was originally supposed to be a NEPA beer, one of the kind of old school NEPAs, and not a modern NEPA, if that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But what BrewDog were doing was copying certain American styles and bringing them over to the UK. So I don't know, like I say, I don't know exactly when they brought this beer out, but it was definitely sort of 2015, 2016, something around there, because I'm almost 100% sure I had this beer in 2017. well, I say this beer, it definitely wasn't this beer. It was the previous, or it was the original beer, which you can't seem to get these days. And yeah, it's got a juicy, a tropical. It's a very modern take on the Nipah. So this is not what this beer was about, 8 or 9 years ago. But let's see if it's any good. It's a 5% IPA, UK IPA. Okay, so juicy from the Simcoe, got the tropical fruit notes from the Mosaic. It's a little bit of bitterness there, but not much. This version is very much a new school hazy IPA, but this is not what a Nipah beer was originally. And I'm thinking of things like, I mean, the only real one I've had is the uh, Alchemist, sorry, the Heady Topper beer, and that is crazy hoppy, like superbly hoppy, and it's a lot stronger than 5%, and that's kind of what a Nipah should be, as opposed to a hazy IPA, which this is, which is a bit kind of meh. There's nothing wrong with this beer, but it's just not. It's not hopped enough. And BrewDog traded early on being obscenely hopped beers, being strong beers, being the new craft revolution. And as they've got bigger and bigger and bigger, unfortunately, they've made their beers cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, as in they've taken stuff away and made these beers for as cheap as they possibly can to cash in, because that's what they've done. Um, yeah, they are not what they used to be. And let me say, this beer is certainly not what it used to be. Why don't they call this a session IPA? That might be more. It tastes like a session IPA. It's it's yeah, a pale ale in my book. Not an IPA at all. Whatever they call it, it is not an IPA. Mm. In fact, interestingly enough, there is discussion going on in the camera ranks, and I don't know how much detail I can go into, but they are thinking of rewording certain styles of beer because it's UK beer. Um, they're making, well, they're talking about making IPA start at a lower ABV for the style guidelines. So I think at the moment it's over 5.5%. So this beer, under those rules, would not be an IPA. You can call it whatever you like, you can call it an IPA, but it cannot be judged as an IPA. So because so many breweries in the UK are dropping their ABV, this is a really, really big problem for judging and stuff. Can you imagine if this beer won? It has to be judged in the pale ale category, not the IPA category. So if it won, and there's no way this beer would win, it's not that good, to be perfectly honest. Um, it would be an IPA would win the pale ale category. It makes absolutely no sense. And yeah, that's what people are having a quandary with at the moment, is because breweries are calling their beers weird things, and then they get annoyed when they don't win awards, and it's because that beer that you've called whatever is not what the award is judging it against. So who's to blame? Are the judges to blame? Are the style categories? Obviously, these things do change a little bit over time. Or are the breweries trying to cash in? And 100% Brewdog is trying to cash in. And that really annoys me because This beer used to be much better than it is now. And they're trying to make as much money out of it as they possibly can. For me personally, and I am going to drink some more of this, I'm 100% consumer focused. And what I would say to you, dear viewer, and who listens to me? Well, a few of you listen to me, so thank you for listening to this review. What I would say is vote with your feet. If you do not like it, do not buy it. And people will soon react. If they're not selling as many beers as they used to, they're going to realise, oh, we've made a mistake here. And that's what you should do, dear viewer. Vote with your feet. If you do not like something, do not buy it. That's how consumer things work. Anyway, let's finish this bad boy off. I'm surprised. I've been waxing lyrical for well over 10 minutes now. We've still got a finger's head. I know I've just poured some more in, but that's pretty crazy, right? So, got a nice layer of creaminess. There's a little bit of kind of chalkiness there too, tiny bit. Maybe that's coming from the wheat, or maybe they've got something in there like carapils or dextrin malt as well. They haven't told us on the recipe, but I'm just kind of thinking that from that malt bill. And then we've got things like Cascade, like Citra, proper big hitters in the hop world, and Mosaic and Simcoe. They're probably, actually, come to think of it, they're probably the top 4 hops in the whole world. And they still haven't managed to save this beer because basically they haven't used enough hops. They've kind of watered it down somehow. So interestingly, I would say if this beer was 7% or whatever it was to start with, I think it probably was up near that level. They'd have to put more hops in to balance it out. But what they've done, they've dropped the ABV and they thought, oh, you know what, we can save some money by pulling some of the hops out. We pulled some of the malts out because the ABV's dropped, or they've backwatered it a bit. And how are we going to balance it? Oh, I know, we'll use less hops. And you just end up with hop water, which unfortunately is what this one is about. Anyway, if you like that kind of thing, if you like hot water, and a lot of people do, so if you do like this beer for being a mellow beer, for being pretty, I mean, 5%'s not that bad, not to be sniffed at. Anything under 5%, I'm like, that's a pale ale. But I mean, you could make an argument this is an IPA, but it's just not. IPAs, in my book, should be heavily hopped. That's what IPAs should be. Traditionally, if you go back to the 1800s, 1700s even, IPAs were heavily hopped. But alas, this one isn't. But yeah, like I say, if you like this beer, why not? It does hit the spot. 5%, not going to argue with that. This has been Uncle Jonah, probably ranting more than usual, but these things do matter, in my opinion. Anyway, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will be back with the final 12 Beers of Christmas review. That's coming up real soon.